This is Truth Be Told.
That not only are there reptilians here,
new evidence of UFO fleets.
We were close to nuclear war.
To help you transform so that you can live your highest truth.
We're not being told just because we're not ready for it.
Radio stations of frequency, vibrational.
I was a homicide detective with LAPD.
UFOs increase. Visitations. Well, lately I've been watching true crime shows. Murders, mysteries that go unsolved or solved within 48, 72 hours. Sometimes they go cold. Well, today we have a specialist in remote viewing. We have Michelle Freed, who is a certified remote viewer and instructor with expertise in controlled remote viewing. And we're going to highlight today how remote viewing aids in locating missing individuals, resolving criminal cases, investigative phenomena, and we'll touch on just how remote viewing can help change our lives. So this might be one to get ready for the new year, but today we're going to talk about remote viewing and true crime. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome remote viewer for the very first time on Truth Be Told, Michelle Freed. Hello, Michelle. Well, after the applause and the crowd goes wild, I want to thank you so much for being here.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, for all my listeners and people tuning in today, you guys can actually be my co-host today. So, down about 20, 25 minutes in, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat room for us, and I'll ask directly from you. But in the meantime, Michelle, thank you so much. Not only is Michelle a amazing remote viewer, but she has a PR firm that you send us some of our amazing guests. So first of all, thank you for sending us your clients.
Oh my gosh, they love the show. They always have such a great experience, and you have an amazing audience.
Oh, well, thank you, and I do, and I thank them for being a part of it today. And so, okay, now we've talked a little bit about remote viewing in the past, but when I was watching, true crime is such a huge genre, even compared to even paranormal. It's huge. And there's different cases all the time. You're thinking, oh my gosh, how many people, get murdered or get, lost in paper. The case goes cold, and you're like, how do these people kind of get discovered and find the people that kill them? And I have to say, first thing that popped in my head was remote viewing, and I don't see a lot of times on these shows that they use that. So first of all, before we jump into that, what is remote viewing, and how did you get your gifts to do that?
So what is remote viewing? That's a huge question. There are a lot of different definitions of remote viewing. So there's one which I call more of a freestyle. That would be like a psychic or somebody that tunes into a location and they get information. Kind of remote viewing that I do is really started, the origin was from the military, where they actually put together a protocol. And when they had, it was called Project Stargate.
Oh, yeah.
And when they declassified in the 90s, a lot of those guys, when they retired, taught a lot of people in a lot of groups. And there was another group of people that did a more civilian type of remote viewing. It still has a protocol. It's has a scientific it's I wouldn't call it scientific method,
right,
but it has a lot of those checkpoints of science, meaning that the viewer is blind,
right,
to the target. They have no clue what they're looking at. They receive a random number, and they follow a protocol throughout the session. So the more civilian one is the one that I work with, and we use a lot of our sensories in our bodies. And I also apply my research and my experience in hypnosis and kind of move it into remote viewing, and seems to be working really well with people. And the reason why the military, when they retired, were able to teach it is because they learned over time that everybody can do it. So nobody has special gifts or anything like that. It's more like waking up something that has been sleeping for a very long time, and or a muscle, we
Right.
haven't worked out, and using a muscle. And a lot of people will say it's like a martial art because you do need to practice a lot.
Is dreaming similar to remote viewing? Or is there a mixture of that? Because there's sometimes you're like, oh, last night I dreamt that I went to my grandma's house, and then you call your grandma later and she's like, oh my God, I was in the kitchen at that time. Is it similar to something like that?
We use dreaming in remote viewing. One of my experiments, I have some papers that were published, and we did an experiment using remote viewing and dreaming.
Oh, wow.
But dreaming is not remote viewing unless you set an intention before you go to sleep. You would set an intention, I'm going to my grandma's house, and describe it. And then when I wake up, and remember, always put in your intention and to remember. And when you wake up in the morning, you would follow that protocol, and then, kind of do it like that. So in our experiment, we were precogging. We were predicting a future outcome of sporting games. I think it was baseball. And so we were given a photo that represented a team, and we had to remote view who was going to win the game. Right. And so we did about 50 trials and had, I think it was a 62% hit rate.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It does work.
And that's because I remember you talking about everybody can remote view. Is that kind of like everybody has the psychic ability, they just don't know how to use it? So it's very similar, right?
Yes, we're tapping into the subconscious, which everybody uses a different word, but it's really semantic, psychic, subconscious, intuition. All those words to me are the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, that totally makes sense, that it's very similar. But why are some more energetically tapped into that, or even genetically tapped into that, than others? Is it just maybe the environment that you grow up in, or is it society? Now I can see why, with social media and every electronics that we use, I can understand where we may not have the abilities because our mind's so compacted with information. But so how is it that some people are more tapped into that than others?
I was thinking about that actually yesterday. Did you know that?
I did. How did I know? I just knew.
I was thinking about that, and I think the answer I came up with was it's about being aware. It's about paying attention.
Right.
Because I think everybody is getting information, but a lot of times, like you said, our brains are full. We're already, we're not in the moment. We're thinking about the next moment, the next moment, the next moment. But some people are just really good at sitting in the moment and paying attention. And that's really what I think it comes down to. I think we all are equal in terms of what we get. I think some people can practice and get better at it. But the ultimate thing is about intention. I think when you set an intention to get information, you will receive the information. So it's like sending out a beacon and then just waiting for the information to come.
That's pretty amazing. Because you hear a lot of people that have had, like near-death experiences or some traumatic, in a coma, and then they wake up from the near-death or a coma or some kind of tragic incident that their abilities are enhanced. Do you think that not just psychic but even remote viewing, is it that experience making you focus even more on the spiritual side of it versus the external side of society?
I mean, it could be. It's hard to answer that, but
Yeah.
I think that, when you have a, life-altering experience, it really changes or it could change your focus in life. A lot of people end up, just taking another review of their life and maybe putting themselves on a different trajectory.
Right.
And part of that trajectory is to slow down and pay attention. And maybe that's what's happening with them.
All right. So the topic that I love to talk about other things, and I think we're going to save that for the end, but for the topic today about true crime, it sounds like that you've worked on cases, or have you worked on cases of true crime? And can you tell us about that first time that they approached you about remote viewing to help solve a crime or help solve a missing person? How do you prepare, and what was that first initial like?
So we have a protocol that we follow. So we kind of we call these operational targets. And so we just follow what we're trained to do. And which, I teach the whole process in my classes. But it does start out with what we call a cool down, where our purpose in the cool down is to just get our bodies relaxed and kind of clear that slate. Because one of the problems in reality about remote viewing or any kind of psychic stuff is balancing the left brain and the right brain. And so what happens is, when people come to me all the time, or I'm sure you've heard this a lot, like people very skeptical, and they say,
right,
if you're psychic, then why aren't you a millionaire? So, and I have an answer. I can tell you why. You ready for this?
I'm ready, because if you can't tell yourself, tell me.
So it's because of the left brain and the right brain. So what happens is, whenever we're doing any kind of creativity or psychic or I guess, you could call it channeling, or anything, is all happening in your subconscious. And the subconscious mind, which has permanent memory, can operate from a perspective of emotion or symbols. It doesn't know language or words. And then you have this left brain that's logic, and the left brain wants everything to make sense. So what it does is, it's our brains are like computers, and it will go really light speed. It'll find out all the patterns in some, if you perceive something. So I always use the same example, and I say, so I perceive something that's red, shiny, and round. And my left brain goes, okay, red, shiny, round, apple, okay. And so what happens is, your left brain calls it an apple. And then when you start kind of taking deeper dives, because you're already set drawing conclusions that this is an apple,
right,
of course you're going to build a story around the apple, and you're going to get a banana, you're going to get a fruit basket. Now, if you're looking for a missing person, unless they're near a fruit basket, that is not going to be helpful.
right.
And it's possible they could be near a fruit basket, but we don't want to rely on that information. So we just describe things, we don't name them. And so when we can figure out how to balance that left brain and the right brain so that they're not resisting each other, we have to find a way. Then until we could do that, we're not going to be 100% accurate all the time. And we do get lucky hits. And the more you practice, the more you learn how your own mind works together, because everybody has different symbols in their lives based on how they were brought up or their perspective in an environment. So it's a personal experience to be a remote viewer. And the more you practice, the more you kind of learn that. And that's why we say, and I'm so hopeful that the human race will be able to evolve into a higher place where we can be doing these things more and more and more, and really finding out our full potential, which we're hardly even near our full
Right.
potential. So, having said all that, when somebody comes to me for any kind of project, the first thing we do is remain blind to the target. So what I like to do is, at this point, I like to be the manager, and then I have some of my students who are so good that they have now become some of my viewers on
Right.
operational targets. So they will only know that this is a true crime case. And the only reason I even tell them that is because they have to prepare a little differently, because sometimes they don't get the nicest information, you know. So, you know, if we're going to see the pyramids, that's a whole different thing. But if it's a true crime, there could be some, you know, not so fun stuff, and they
Right.
really need to prepare themselves for that. So that's really all they know. So that's how I prepare for it, and that's how it kind of all gets set up. In my personal story, when I started doing this, I had a few cases. One, I was working with these detectives on a case that was a cold case.
Mm-hmm.
It was a missing child. And the interesting part of it that I was very surprised was how detectives come in with a preconceived idea of what actually happened. And when they're working with remote viewers, we walk in, we know nothing. So they have already drew a conclusion with that left brain
Right.
that this kid's dead.
Right.
We walk in and we're like, we know nothing. So we could possibly get information that's showing, well, maybe the kid was kidnapped, or maybe the kid, you know, something else happened,
Right.
trafficking or whatever it was. And so in that first case, it was a little challenging because it was hard to change their narrative. But what broke through was that we perceived a structure in this area, and we were describing what would be a prison. And the detectives were like, there's no prison there. There's absolutely no prison. But after they did some research on the history of this structure, they found out that the structure was actually built to be a prison,
Oh,
but it
wow.
never opened. So that kind of got them to like
Wow.
take a new look at remote viewers, which was really helpful, because we're like, you know, we're not saying the kid is alive, we're not saying the kid's dead, but we have to be really unbiased here. And but you know, unfortunately, in that particular case, we did not get any concrete and the kid's still missing. So that was just kind of left up in the air, which is, you know, to be honest, most of the cases are really hard. But I do have a success case where I did not know, they called me and a group of people. And so someone else was the manager and I was a viewer. And what I, so I didn't know anything. I didn't know if it was male, female, child, adult. I didn't know where it was in the world. And so the minute I put my pen on paper, I just knew that whoever this was not alive. I
Oh,
just
wow.
knew it right off the bat. And I just proceeded, and I felt like, you know, my intuition is telling me to triangulate the area. And so what I did was I took a piece of paper and I put an X in the middle that represented the subject. And then I kind of looked at it. It was kind of a bird's eye view. And there was a male, and he was in a particular position that I kind of drew with my amazing artistic talents, which I call stick figure.
I was going to say that'd be me.
And I drew the position. I saw blood from the forehead, like right here.
Hmm.
I was perceiving a big, huge boulder. It was a foresty area, and there was some kind of dirt path that led to some kind of dilapidated structure. And then there was water nearby. And so I kind of drew this thing, and then just because of my art, drew little arrows to describe like what everything was. And that was helpful to them because what they knew exactly the area they were looking in. So they took the session, the sketch, and they held it up to their map, and they're like, okay, where do we have a body of water, foresty area, and some kind of structure?
Hmm.
So they were able to play around with the map, and it helped along with the other viewers. There were I think probably 3 or 4 other viewers, but this was very helpful. And so we got later, they found him, and we got our feedback, which was unfortunate.
Mm.
But what I was happy about is that the parents they were able to get closure.
Oh, that's
So
good.
what actually happened was it was a young adult, college age. He got drunk at this dilapidated building, was actually a bar.
Mm.
He walked out on a dirt path in a foresty area and took out a boat, and the boat, he fell out of the boat, and the boat hit him on the head, and he died of a head injury.
Oh, no.
So in my perception, and this is where your left brain and right brain plays
Right.
with you, I thought it was a big, huge boulder. And I didn't see him in the water. So there was a little bit, but whatever, it helped.
It
And
no, it
they were able
does.
to find him. So it isn't perfect, but I'm striving to get better and better. So those were a couple cases, and
Well,
that
it,
I personally worked on.
and I think that's amazing. And I have to say, I don't mean to compare it to this, but when they bring out the dogs and they let them smell a scent, and the dogs go and hunt down a missing person or a fugitive or whatever, it kind of reminds me of, because it is a sense. Dogs are using the sense. They don't know where they went. They don't know who this person looks like. They really just kind of going by, the smell. And so in a way, you're using, even though they're not giving you a lot of details of the people, do they give you a name? Do they give you nothing? They just say a location, or how do they do that? Because I just know me, I would be fearful, even if I well, you say we have the guest, okay, I would be fearful to even give it a shot.
Right. So I get what you're saying for sure. So, and I'll say that, most 99% of the targets and 99% of the viewers do not want to know one single thing.
Oh, wow.
Because what happens is you become biased to something.
Yeah.
And but having said that, I will say that just like in life, there's exceptions. So an exception would be in a true crime case is if the detectives didn't, it's a time crunch, it's an emergency,
Right.
and they just want you to get the important parts, that they don't care about proving remote viewing or not. They just want the information.
Right.
So they'll tell us more information in that case. And even when I do that, some of my viewers are like, "Oh, I wish you didn't tell me." But they have to be good at that too.
Right.
And so it is important. But when you learn the process, because there's a process that you flow through. You start with phase 1, you move to phase 2, and you keep
Right.
going. You will understand that it's not like what you think it is. You have a kind of net behind you that prompts you and gives you instructions on what to do. And the whole session is surrounded by an intention,
Mm-hmm.
the secret question. So
Right.
the secret question would be something like, we call it tasking.
Right.
So it would be something like describe, and the viewers don't know this, but it's a secret question. And it's something to the effect of describe the current location of so and so, or describe the current condition of
Mm-hmm.
so and so. And then and then you give it a number, you take only the number and you give it to the viewers, and then they just follow the protocol. They
Wow.
take it step 1, step 2, step 6. So you're not just freestyling it, where you just have to pull it out of the air. You're actually prompting yourself. What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I, describe it? Is it man-made? Is it natural?
Hmm.
Those are the kinds of things you prompt yourself. And then what happens is you start with a nugget, and then you just keep exploring that nugget by describing more and more. You prompt yourself if it's um, some kind of structure. You prompt yourself, go inside the structure and describe, go outside the structure and describe. So that's basically kind of how we move along through the session.
I did a past life regression once. And I always said, I'm ADD. I don't think I could do this. I'm too ADD. My mind just is too much of a, turntable. That's for you young people. That's a record player. But so I actually went the past life regression. The lady that I worked with, she walked me through it, and I started opening up, relaxing, starting getting visions, started seeing me as an old man, started seeing me in a place, started seeing me with items and in an orchard and in a cottage. And it was so real. And I even got a name. And then I looked it up later, and that name came up around that time period that it looked like. And I was like, holy crap. I said, that can't be a coincidence. So remote viewing, to me, it sounds like almost a past life regression, even though we lived it, because it's you're tapping into that side of you that, like you said, we have the ability, but tapping into another time, another place. And what is your take on past lives regression versus? Because it's very similar, and I think a lot of people are probably are like, well, what's like you said, distinctive, where you're like, okay, and it's an intention. And so what is your take on past life regression versus remote viewing?
So I think remote viewing is a tool. I would say a tool to get the information that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So you could use this tool to go to something in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and you can use this tool to go to something in the future.
Right.
Or you can use this tool to find something right now.
Right.
So I see it as a tool. And I use this tool, and one of our session in practice, like through our classes, I give a target to my students that they should go to a past life and bring back a skill from that life that will make them a better remote viewer.
Oh, that's great. That's a good suggestion too. Yeah.
So that's how you can use remote viewing for these other things that you want. I see the past life is like a place of information.
Mm-hmm.
So you use the tool to gather the intel. So if you want to, know anything about a past life, you want to know about a cold case, you want to know about aliens or Bigfoot or what the heck is at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, or you want to know something about in the future, what's going to happen in the future, like wagering on sporting events or looking at stocks or cryptocurrency. All that can be done with the tool of remote viewing.
That'd be great. It'd save on air traffic. You wouldn't have to buy your airline ticket and save some money that way. You could just travel wherever you wanted to go.
Exactly. It's great. Definitely cost efficient.
Right. I know when I sit at home, and this is what really wanted me to talk to you about this, because when I'm sitting at home, I'm like, I'm a big investigator. I love to investigate. I love to try to solve clues before the detectives do. And have you ever just sat at home watching a TV show of true crime or something, or serial killer, and oh my gosh, I'm getting these, downloads of who this might be, a location. How do you control that? And do you ever reach out to the police departments and say, hey, listen, I'm a remote viewer and I have some information. Have you had that happen?
People around me have had that happen. I don't usually get anything spontaneous, really. I'm the kind of person that when I sit down and I follow the protocol, that's just how I am.
Right.
But lots of people around me will just get spontaneous stuff.
Wow.
But it is interesting that you bring up going to the police or whatever. That's a little bit of a problem. One of my missions is that I want police and detectives and even anything. I want them to seek us out first,
right?
Not as a last resort. We even help people. I get emails all the time from people. I lost my wedding ring, or I can't find some papers, or and they're using us to help them find these things. So, I mean, what's the difference between finding someone's wedding ring or finding a person? It's just,
right.
Pivoting to whatever the subject is. So, the problem is that I hesitate to go seeking it out rather than them coming to me. Because if you seek it out, I'm just not, I don't have the energy at this point to convince people.
Right.
Because the truth is that the only way anybody will ever know, and this is across the board in anything, you can only know what something is like if you have the experience. Even to the point where, when I was younger and I had friends that would lose a parent, and I would say, oh, I know how you feel. Until I lost my parent, I really didn't.
Yeah.
I thought I did.
Yeah.
And just like everyone can walk around now and say, yeah, I know this, I know that. They don't until they have the experience. And it's the same with remote viewing. Until you remote view, it's near impossible for you to understand what it's like. And I can do my best to describe it, but I can't convince people that just don't want to. They have to experience it. So
and that's actually a good question, is when do majority of these police departments, like you said, they don't care if you're, they're skeptical or not. But they, like you said, they want to know the answers. So do they usually wait till it's become cold or almost a cold case before they come to you or remote viewers?
There's some remote viewers out there that have companies. I know one in particular. I forgot the name of them, but I know the one that her name is Gail Husick, and she runs it. She actually got her PI license.
Wow.
So she has learned how to build a credibility so that people will respect her. I think she's like a Harvard law graduate,
right,
and all this. So that helps, because when people are skeptical, they're like, oh, she went to Harvard, she's an attorney, she got her PI license. questions and all that stuff. And so they have a good way into helping out these things. I don't tend to do a lot of true crime, but they do come up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more um, like history stuff. Like we had a client come to us about a statue.
Hmm.
And she is an author. Her name is I have it, Gretchen Cornwell. She does research on the Knights of the Templar.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah. And she was on The Mysteries of Oak Island. She's appeared on that show many times. And I was talking to her, and of course, because I'm obsessed with remote viewing, I was talking about it, and she's like, "Wait, can you remote view this?" And she pulls out a statue and puts it right down in front of me, and we were on Zoom like this. I'm like, "Don't tell me anything. Don't tell me anything." Um, so I had three of my students, so I put together a project and they had no clue. I told them zero. I just said, do this target number. I gave them an 8-digit number, and they came back to me, and then we had a meeting and talked about the feedback and everything. This statue is very, very old. Like I think from the 1300s.
Oh my gosh.
It was
Wow.
carved out of like wood or something. And one lady actually described a tree trunk cut, she was describing how it was made. Another one was talking about the philosophy of the Knights of the Templar, and what the information that Gretchen had was that this statue she believed to be Henry St. Clair. And so they were describing Henry. They didn't say his name, but they were describing Henry St. Clair. This woman was so blown away. Like she kept going like this. What? What? And she recorded our session and ended up putting it in her documentary series.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow.
are the things it's like, I don't even know of anything you can't use remote viewing for. So we have a huge, vast kind of spectrum of cases that we can look at.
I love that. I love that. And before I want to jump into getting ready for the new year, I do have one more question about the true crime. I've heard many times on these true crime shows the detective saying that was the most gruesome crime scene I've ever seen. I'll never forget it. How do you prepare yourself, and how do you prepare your students for not getting too emotional and not being too overwhelmed by this type of remote viewing? Because I would think that would be very much impacting on you personally.
Absolutely. So not everybody can do targets like that.
Yeah.
But we'll start out with that. It's not for everyone. The second thing is that we actually have built in, I kind of add things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I added is to ask and say, is doing this target in my best interest?
Right.
Is it, good? And if you get a yes or a no, if you get a no, then you might want to pass and we can give it to someone else. So that's the first thing. The next thing is a lot of people will kind of make sure that they're staying as an observer and they don't get too incorporated into everything. Just kind of, I'm an observer, I'm safe. So they kind of set up a perimeter like that of safety. And the third thing, which not all my students do, is at the end, we have a little, I don't know what you call it. Not a ritual, but we do a little thing where we end the session, but we end the session. So we do where we sever ourselves from the session.
Probably
Sometimes
a good idea.
happens is after session, sometimes people will just want to keep thinking about it.
Right.
And then they'll call me up. Wait, I was washing the dishes and I got Like, did you end your session? They're like, no. I'm like, end your session. You're done. You're
Don't take
done.
work home with you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we do, just, because that is, it's hard work.
So if anybody wants to practice remote viewing and specialize in solving crimes or true crimes, can they come to you, or do you have any suggestions for where they can start and where they can go? Because I'm sure getting the right teacher is very important.
Yeah. So I love teaching. I love teaching. So it comes across.
Yeah.
So I will definitely tell them to take my class. Um, and and that it doesn't just help them, do these cases, and it doesn't just help with remote viewing. There is a personal journey that everybody goes through. I can't tell you how many things that I have taken from what I've learned in the process of remote viewing and applied to my life. And it also, believe it or not, it gives me confidence. I trust my gut. I was always like, I'm not sure. I would dismiss things. But when you see and you experience these things and you see them, you know, in real time, you start having more confidence that I know, and my heart is telling me all the answers. I need to pay attention. I imagine I have a little, imagery of a little train, a little car on a track, and it's going along. And when I start feeling a little depressed or anxious, and I pull up that image, every time that little train is off the track.
Right.
And so I just kind of put the train back on the track. And it just means that I'm not following my heart. I'm doing something somebody else around me expects me to do, or I'm trying to please somebody.
Right.
And all that. So putting the train, actually doing that in your mind, moving the train back on, resets you to get back along with your path and your heart. And I learned that from remote viewing.
I love that. I'm going to have to take your class. I know you have one coming up January 6th. Is that right?
Yes, I'll add you to the list.
I would love to. I'd love to attempt it. And since I even though I have ADD, I said if I can do past live, I'm sure I can at least attempt to try to do remote viewing. I think that'd be fun.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Well, we're a month away from the new year, 2024, and I know on the way out, I'd love to talk about how we can prepare for the new year. And with remote viewing, what can we do? How do we help kind of structure what's coming for us? Is that something we can do, or is it just fate, or can we remote view and try to help guide us a little more sturdy?
So that's a loaded question.
All right.
Because I'll tell you why, because it gets into quantum physics in a way. Because it's a whole nother show. But
we'll have to have you back.
I'll give you a little teaser.
Oh, I love teasers.
When we're predicting the future and we're jumping into the future. So I want to look into the future. Say we set up a remote viewing project where we're looking at a particular date or a season, or whatever we want to look at.
Right.
So as we know, a lot of people, we talk about things that are being observed will act differently when they're not observed. So when that whole science in the quantum world tells us that the future is not fixed. And if we observe the future, does that mean, and this is a question and anyone can answer, does that mean that the future is not fixed, that we can change the future? And so, a lot of these really smart people way over my head are looking at that question. And I just love listening to them talk, because it's just like, it's like fireworks, because I'm like, ooh, yeah, like the whole time you're just like, I didn't think of that. because it's just miraculous to me. It is. So, but there's nothing more fun than predicting the future. It is, in fact, I'm actually with my remote viewing people, we're going to have on the 31st. We did it last year. So we're going to go through all the stuff we did for this year, and we're going to have a party, a prediction party for 2024.
Oh, fun.
So, yeah, I love it. It's so much fun. And then you just do your feedback the next year. So that way, we stay in touch, and it's a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun. And one last thing, in April of next year, I'm going to Europe for 10 days. And one of the purposes, we're going to Prague and Austria, Vienna, Austria, and all that, and Budapest. But one of the reasons, because I'm a big family history buff, and so a lot of my mom's side of the family came from Czech and Bohemia and all that stuff. I'm curious on remote viewing of family ancestors going back to the land where they were born in the 1800s or before that. I'm curious on how. Has anybody ever approached you on like family trees and ancestors?
Not personal family tree, but we definitely do things like that for sure. I mean, all the time we're doing stuff like that.
That would be fun, I think, because there's sometimes
so much fun.
Yeah, records only tell so much, so there's no other way other than maybe a remote view.
Yeah, in my class, I'm always looking for practice targets. So I ask all the students to give me 3 questions they want us to work on.
That's cool.
After we learn the whole protocol, it's a 6-week course. After we learn that, and then everyone still wants to practice, I just start feeding in those questions. And nobody knows when it'll appear. So you'll be blind. You can remote view it for yourself.
Oh, that's great.
Because I won't tell you that it's your question until after you finish your session. So that's a lot of fun too.
Well, unfortunately, I can't believe it's already 50 minutes. But Michelle, you are amazing. I can't wait to have you back, and hopefully I get to meet you in person one of these days. I'm sure
Sure, that would be so much fun.
And I hope you had a good time on Truth Be Told, and I definitely will have you back. I mean, we have so much more to talk about. But so you have projects coming up, classes coming up. Do you have any other things you need to tell us about, where to promote, where to go to see do you have books? Do you have books on tapes or anything like that?
No, I just want to teach remote viewing, and then of course I have my publicity company. So if anybody's looking for a publicist, but
she's a great one.
I think you have Michelle, or you have my website there. So just go to that website. It'll have everything on remote viewing. It has the dates, and I try to keep the prices as low as possible because I really want as many people to be taking the class. So I do not charge anything I think my classes are, I guess anybody that says that they heard about the class from Truth Be Told. So I'll give you guys for $415 the class. It's a 6-week class, so it only comes to $60 a class if you look at it like that. So
that's great.
But I would love to do that. And that first class that I'm teaching January 6th is a hybrid, and it includes med apps. So if you're into healing and stuff like that, that class will be on January 6th. So it's remote viewing also with healing.
I love it. I'm going to be going, and please, everybody, go to, for the people that are listening, butterflyeffectcenter.com, and it's effect, not affect, so just in case you want to spell it out for you. But one last question. This was just popped in. Wayne, my buddy, my co-host in the chat room, says, Michelle, have you ever remote viewed the past, such as like 1776, like in that era? Have you ever remote viewed?
Not the 1700s. No, no, we did certain things, like we remote viewed the the Bob Lazar
Oh yeah.
UFO. So we did that. We did Skinny Bob. So if you
How
want to do
fun.
the esoteric stuff, Bigfoot. I mentioned the Baltic Sea anomaly. All sorts of portals and paranormal and all sorts of things.
Well, part 2, we're going to come back and talk about those, because that's all right up our alley too. So, but thank you so much, Michelle. I'll definitely be talking to you really soon, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Having me.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Please support our amazing friend Michelle Freed, butterflyeffectscenter.com. Go take a class, and who knows, you may have a bigger gift, because I think everything that is provided to us is a gift. Breathing is a gift. So just use it. And Michelle's one of those people that can help you and guide you to increasing that remote viewing specialty. So, but please tune in Mondays for Robert Hensley, a Minuteman Report at 3 o'clock. Wednesdays at 3 with Bonnie Burkard. She does the Truth Be Told transformation. Of course, I'm here every Friday for the last 13 years. So thank you guys so much for supporting Truth Be Told. Please share, comment, tell your friends to keep this podcast going. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep this going for a long time. Has some big announcements coming up, and we hope that you guys can be a part of the future of Truth Be Told and the Club Paranormal. So until next time, I'm Tony Sweet. Take care. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows.